It's a pleasure to be talking to you all today about return to practice. My role is the Health and Care Professions Council lead for return to practice for Health Education England. I know we have people at the event today from all over the UK, but the programme of work I'm talking about is for returnees in England. We are working closely with colleagues from the 4 nations when the opportunity arises, and are working closely with Peter Glover in Scotland at the moment. AHPs, healthcare scientists and practising psychologists all need to register with the HCPC in order to practice. It is actually AHP Day today, so it's an opportune time to be talking about returning these highly skilled professionals back to the register and ultimately back into the NHS commission services and social care workforce. Although it's not mandatory or endorsed by the HCPC, the HCPC Return to Practice programme I lead is designed to provide additional support alongside the HCPC Return to Practice guidance, and it offers clinical, academic and financial support to returnees. It is a nationally led but locally delivered programme. Next slide, please, Joy. So just some return to practice stats for you. To meet the aims of the long-term plan, recruiting the right people with the right skills at the right time into your organisation is obviously key. And return to practice can be a win-win for your organisation, as returnees leave the register with an average of 9 years experience and 60% of them at band 7 or above. Returnees have the potential to be recruited into the middle and higher bands due to their years of clinical experience when they return, therefore offering an opportunity for organisations. Currently, from the ESR data we have available, we know that 33% at least of our returnees have returned at band 6 and 7. We have also had some recent successes with returnees returning at band 8A also. Recently, we've been working with the NHS employers to signpost returnees to the guidance around their previous experience and service to support them with this. Over the last 4 years of the programme, we've returned a total of 393 returnees to the HCPC register. That's over 5,022 NHS clinical years that have been returned back to the register. Next slide, please, Joy. So in terms of the HCPC return to practice requirements, essentially the amount of hours they need to do to apply to return to the register increases with the amount of time they've been out of practice. So if they've been out of practice for 0 to 2 years, there's no requirements, they can apply to go back on the register. 2 to 5 years out of practice is 30 days of updating, and 5 or more years is 60 days of updating. The good thing I think about the HCPC return to practice route is that it's very flexible, and it's a very flexible means of them updating their skills and knowledge, and can really be tailored to what they need to get back on the register. It's self-managed by the returnee, and their return journey can involve supervised practice, private and formal study. Returnees go about collecting evidence to apply to go back onto the register, and the returnee competency is assessed by the HCPC themselves. A recent change to HCPC requirements is that they now have 24 months to return to the register, where pre-COVID it was 12 months. And one of the biggest challenges for returnees has been sourcing supervised practice placements, especially over the pandemic. And most returnees, as you can probably imagine, want some level of supervised practice placement to go towards their hours to return to the register. This supervised practice placement also offers an opportunity for both the returnee and organisation to try before they buy and see if this person is a good fit for their organisation, and equally for the returnee to see if they want to continue to work for that organisation also. Next slide, please. So in terms of the eligibility criteria, the programme's open to and will support all current and former HCPC registrants looking to update their skills and knowledge. I'd just really like to draw your attention to the last bullet point here. It's been a very recent change to the eligibility criteria for our programme, in that we're now accepting overseas qualified clinicians who are eligible for HCPC registration that are residing in England and planning to practice in England also. They do need to go initially down the international registration process route, and once they've been in touch with the HCPC and they know what their requirements are for a period of adaptation, then that's something we can support them with on the programme. Next slide, please. So in terms of funding that's available for the programme, there's a total of 1,300 available. That's split between the returnee and if they do a supervised practice placement. So £800 to the returnee and £500 is claimable by any supporting supervised practice placement provider. We have made some recent changes to the funding process to make it easier for organisations and returnees to claim this funding as well. We have got a guide to support returnees and organisations in claiming these funds, because it can be a challenge, particularly more so for the returnees to navigate you know, what they can and can't claim for, etc. as well. Next slide, please. So in terms of how do they return, there's two common routes that our returnees use to return. The first I'm going to talk about is the unpaid or voluntary route, which is the commonest way they do return. This is usually an unpaid placement then within an organisation, and is usually coordinated in conjunction with the Learning and Education Department. On completion of the agreed supervised practice hours, the returnee can reapply to the HCPC register, and if a position is available, apply for a HCPC registrant position within an organisation. The benefits of the unpaid route is that it offers a bit more flexibility in terms of length and regularity of supervised practice hours, allowing the returnee to fit the placement around their personal circumstances and home life. It also offers the department the opportunity to offer hours that work for them as well. These returnees are often issued an honorary contract in the NHS, and I understand from speaking to some clinical staff in social care that they're not able to use honorary contracts to accept returnees via the unpaid route. So a question I'd really like to put out to the floor is there an alternative or equivalent to the honorary contract in social care? And if you can enlighten me and perhaps get in touch with me after this, I'd be really grateful, because I'm trying to unpick that to try and encourage more of our returnees to be supported through social care. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, Joy, if you could go back, go back a slide, sorry. So the second route, I should say, is the paid or employer-led route, which is another route for returnees, and is often where they're offered a contract of employment, and they're usually paid at a band 3 or 4 until they've successfully re-registered with the HCPC. Returnees can then obviously apply for a permanent position if one is available, but the organisation doesn't have to guarantee them a job offer, of course. The employer-led or paid route to return to practice offers an increased likelihood of retaining the returnee once they've successfully completed their return to practice placement. And I think what a lot of organisations have done is place a returnee in a vacancy, which allows them then to continue working for the organisation once they're back on the register. A kind of grow your own approach, where you've somebody that you know is a good fit for your workplace and is already embracing your organisational values and ways of working. We've produced a quick guide to support organisations in setting up return to practice, and it might be really helpful to share with staff in your organisations who may take on returnees. We're also in the process of setting up a quick guide for returnees themselves, and are developing a SharePoint site for organisations and returnees to access more information readily. Next slide, please, Joy. So what are the benefits for your organisation? As we've said, you can tap into a skilled workforce that's ready to fill some of those higher bandings potentially, address workforce gaps and hard to fill positions. And these individuals not only have clinical experience, but life experience as well, generally live locally, are motivated, and hopefully that will increase your chances of retaining them. Possibly could reduce your recruitment and agency costs and increase your bank capacity. And there's evidence that if people are supported to return, they're highly likely to seek employment with that organisation. And Laura Flatman from NHS E&I is working closely with the AHP team at Health Education England around retention. It's a relatively quick and cheap way to increase supply as well, because the average cost is around 1,175, and returnees can be very quickly back on the register within 30 to 60 days. I'd now just like to show you a short video clip of one of our returnees, which I think illustrates what is possible with the right support in place. Alan is now working as a Band 5 diagnostic radiographer at Maidstone and Tunbridge Wells NHS Trust, where he did his supervised practice placement. Thank you, Joy.
Hi, my name is Alan. I'm doing my return to practice for diagnostic radiography, and tomorrow is going to be my first day for the clinical supervision, which I'm going to be doing at the Pembury Hospital in Tunbridge Wells. I've not been there as a radiographer, so quite nervous about it, but the recent pandemic and also some personal experiences has really made me realise that I want to go in and do something that I feel I'm going to add value, do something that's going to affect others and impact the care of others. And so for me, you know, doing the return to practice is really important right now. I've been doing a lot of personal study to try and get myself back up to speed. So especially on the bones, getting myself knowing all of my bony anatomy, all of the radiology theories and positioning, so quite nervous really, to be honest, but today's the day before. Tomorrow I start at 9 o'clock in the department. So here I am on day one, looking forward to my first day, being in the department and realising how much I have forgotten. So rather nervous, scale of 1 to 10 on nerves, I'd say about 25. But I'm really looking forward to it. So it's day 15 of my return to practice here at Tunbridge Wells Hospital in Kent. I've been very lucky that the team have been incredibly collaborative, supportive. They've coached and mentored me and really helped to build up my confidence. And as time has gone, I've become much more confident myself in my abilities and knowing I can do this job, and I know that I can be a part of that team. I've finished my clinical supervision now and filled in my forms with my mentor that was there at the hospital, and just got my notification actually that I'm now back on the register. And I sent the forms on Friday and it's now Tuesday, so it went through really quickly. So the new processes they've got in place during the pandemic has really worked well. So very, very happy. Seeing other people going through the same process, that's been so helpful, and other radiographers have really helped me on that. Back on the register from I think just 10 minutes ago, so really exciting to have gone through that process. Also, it's been great to help out during the pandemic time. I think it was a great time to go back, learn my skills, and really also to be a part of the team to help through that process. So great stuff. So thank you very much to everyone that's helped me.
Just to let you know, really the video was just really to demonstrate the nervousness and the anxieties that a returnee can feel as they're, you know, embarking on their return to practice journey, and to show you that sort of following Alan on his journey of going into the workplace and how he felt and how well supported he was. And what we do know is I've just analysed some data from our returnees actually just yesterday, and 79% of them feel either that their supervised practice placement was good or outstanding in terms of their support they received, which is really encouraging that our organisations are being so supportive to our returnees. So I just wanted to leave you with things for organisations to think about. So how does your organisation attract returnees? Is there a central point of contact for returnees? And are you engaging with all your departments to facilitate return to practice? You know, the clinical heads of departments, education and learning, to really engage them in the process. Do all your clinical staff understand what HCPC return to practice is and what the requirements are? And what is your offer to returnees as well, really, in terms of flexible working, honouring annual leave, years of service, pay banding? You know, will you recognise their previous years of NHS experience? That is something that we do find with our returnees. They do encounter difficulties when looking to return to the NHS and social care. They can find sometimes their previous experience isn't always recognised. So that's something that I'd really encourage organisations to think about, to try and attract those returnees back to their workplace. And then lastly, around pastoral support. So what could you do to provide pastoral support for your returnees? And I'd encourage, obviously, organisations to really care for their returnees, to hope that they then remain with that organisation. Nationally, we're running a pilot course of coaching for our returnees to see if this proves useful to them. And if it does, we're hoping to roll that out as a permanent feature on our programme. Obviously, I know that within organisations there are already existing schemes for students around preceptorship, but there is no reason why that couldn't be applied for returnees as well. Megan Parr in HEE's also produced a guide recently about using clinicians late in their career to support students. And I think this would be a really useful tool to support returnees as well. Supporting our returnees to feel welcome in the workplace will hopefully lead them to wanting to remain with your organisation and obviously support retention. Next slide, please. So I'd just like to finish by saying thank you for listening, and sorry about the video glitch. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, there's my contact details on the screen. And I'm now going to hand you over to a couple of real life examples, the first of which is Freya Sledding from Airedale, to talk about her organisation's experience of return to practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Lovely to be here on AHP Day, as Natasha said, and it's a joy to celebrate the 14 professions which are under the Allied Health Professional umbrella. So as Natasha said, my name's Freya Sledding. I'm a therapy service manager at Airedale, and I'm a proud occupational therapist. Hopefully it's gonna really dovetail with what Natasha's told you about the national programme, and I'm going to give you an organisational perspective of and share our journey really of how we've utilised and embedded returnees back into practice here at Airedale. Can I have the next slide, please, Jo? So just to give you some background and to give you the context, Airedale's a really small integrated care organisation in West Yorkshire. We employ about 3,500 employees, roughly about 250 employees are AHPs, and that's across the registered and the non-registered workforce, and that's across OT, physiotherapy, speech and language therapy, dietetics, ODPs and radiographers, so 6 of the 14 we employed. And we also, under our umbrella, we have a small healthcare psychology service, so we have employed psychologists to return to practice. We're not a big teaching hospital that has that pull for recruitment. I think our unique selling point is that we're small, friendly, we've got strong community engagement, we're very supportive, we can give a variety of experience across an acute and community setting. And also, if you've ever been to our neck of the woods, it's actually very beautiful as well. our workforce has a strong emphasis on local community. We aspire for our workforce to reflect the diverse work community that we serve. So a strong thread is on retention and recruitment to get there. So we've had success with return to practice, and we know that organisations aren't set up or as proactive as we've been, and personally I can't understand why. So hopefully after this we can encourage other organisations to be more proactive. Just want to give you a bit of, can I have the next slide please, Joy? So just give some outcomes really. This is from, we were quite an early adopter of return to practice, and a returnee actually approached us before we actually knew about the national programme. So since 2018 to the present day, we've had 14 inquiries. Not all inquiries have turned into placements, but a high proportion have. So we've had 11 facilitator placements, and that's resulted in 9 registered professions back on the HCPC register, 6 of which we've employed and are in substantive posts at Airedale. Others have gone to other organisations in the ICS and wider in the NHS. We've had 1 that's returned to the voluntary sector, and 3 for different reasons have not yet returned to paid employment. So I want to hopefully highlight some of the challenges we've had, but hopefully give some of the solutions. I would say, can I have the next slide please, Joy? I'm not keeping up with the slide. This is a statement really, and this is a statement from one of our returnees that approached us, and she's just highlighted really how she didn't know how to return to practice. She didn't know what the process was, she didn't know how it would be seen, but also the organisation that she worked, she was employed as a band 4 support worker, didn't know how to progress a career. So I think that's the first one. If I can click onto the next bit. Oh, I think you've missed a little bit of your slides. I'll just talk it through if we go back, Joy. So I think the first thing is about knowing about it. So that's the returnee, the managers in the service, but also the workforce, the clinicians. If you do promote the programme, people have lots of networks. The power of local networks across professional boundaries really helps this. So it's about education for all really around it. I think the second challenge that we had was the perception of returnees. I'm not needed, they wouldn't want me, I've been out of practice too long. Actually, we've seen a difference since COVID, since all the publicity around maybe AHPs working in NHS settings over COVID on the press, positive stories. Actually, people have been saying, you do need me, I'm coming, I'm happy to return. Not having an organisational process really is a major barrier, not knowing what to do. We've done a lot of work in setting up processes with HR, recruitment and finance, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. But the barrier is just not knowing how to start or what's the next step. I've put mentors as a challenge as well. AHPs are having a really big push across the workforce to increase student capacity. So we're trying to get everyone that can support students to support them. So some feedback is we haven't got the actually capacity to support more returnees, but actually for the right people, this is an opportunity. There's no assessment, it's HCPC verified. So I think it's about choosing your mentors and getting them on board with it. And once you've started to employ some return to practice, you've already got a ready-made pool of mentors that can support returnees throughout the service. And the last thing that I've put is the circumstances of the individuals. You've got to understand that many of these people came out of practice because something in their life happened, whether that was an illness, whether that was family, whether it was caring responsibility. And some of them are actually needing financially to work and haven't got the capacity to give up work to do the placements, or have to work round some work employees. So flexibility is key. Don't think this is a traditional placement that you can employ students. We've done various things about having placements within holiday periods, doing them over the weekend and evening, doing them part-time 1 to 2 days a week, I think you really have to listen to the returnee and make a bespoke offer to them. So what, can I have the next slide, please, Joy? So we're just going to talk to you about what we've done to facilitate return to practice. So the first thing that we've done for return to practice is a bespoke guide for managers and mentors. I think this really explains the process, but it embeds our organisational process at Airedale as well. It gives background to the information, to the programme. It talks about the financial support and how you access that, and it's got resources and links to it. Very much aligns to the HEE process, and it takes you through the 10 steps, which are the applicant registering interest, so someone contacts you, and that can be signposts from the HEE or just externally. How you deal with the inquiry, how we set up an introductory meeting with the returnee to really understand what they need and what we can offer. And then it takes information about arranging the placement, and that includes the DSB, organising the honorary contract, so how HR can support this. And then it talks about the start of the placement, what to do at the start, so think about the induction and the resources you've available, what happens during the placement, and then a completion of placement. And then we've added in an evaluation of the placement so that we can learn and continuously improve by that. A major point of it I've named employability, and I think it's really important that as managers we meet the returnees and talk about the opportunities if it is a voluntary placement. So whether that's going on the bank, what vacancies you've got, how can you make it work, and then a section about when the placement ends and what happens next. I think what this does is just give confidence to managers and mentors to be able to deal with the process. Joy, can I have the next slide? The next one is the return to practice booklet for returnees, and this is a bespoke resource that we've designed that is used to fill in by both the returnee and the mentor, and I think they find it reassuring to record the placement in somewhere. I think most importantly, it's welcoming. It's saying this organisation needs you and wants you, and to interact through social media to promote that. We need to use returnees to attract more returnees, is my opinion. It's got 9 sections, so it's got instructions how to complete. It's got a section about professional objectives, so they're about what competencies do that individual want to support the placement. It has behavioural objectives, and they're based on our right care values within the organisation and being able to demonstrate that. It's got a section on learning and development objectives, and that includes a SWOT analysis of trying to break down really what the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities that returnee has during the placement. It has a section to record supervision, a section to record the number of hours that they've undertaken, an area for reflections and some resources. And then it's finally got a signing off that you've done so many hours and a thank you to it. So it's a very personal approach. Next slide, please, Joy. And finally, the other ways that we've done is actually constantly promoting and celebrating return to practice. So at every opportunity across our local community, regionally and nationally, we try and take the opportunity to promote it. So we've done that through careers fairs, in reaching to schools that we do around that, because it's not just the school-age person. You don't know whose mum and dad are sat at home as a registered employee, and those messages go back into the family. Across our own workforce, I said about the power of our own networks, and we've also done community radio sessions about careers and included that in. We've done local newspaper articles, and there's a local website that is about Bradford and Craven's One Workforce, which has some inspirational stories. So we've done some case studies of returnees back into practice. We always use the social media stuff from our accounts that really promotes what we do and shows that we're an organisation that is ready to support returnees, and we have strong links with the the national programme, so we get a lot of referrals through that way. Next slide, Joy. So the next slides are just really to illustrate two case studies. So these are two people that we've employed. I'm not going to go through them in detail, but the link to the one website is there with their case study. But Romy is a physiotherapist that originally qualified in Peru and had worked in the UK for a number of years at quite a senior level within neuro and rehabilitation. She got on the register in 2010, and it was really personal family reasons that she let her registration lapse. So she started to work as a support worker in a rehabilitation ward. And then 10 years later, she sort of started to explore return to practice. She was working in a local trust that really weren't well suited to set up return to practice, so actually came to us for a placement. And she started right the first week of the pandemic as people were it was all happening really. We put her in a band 5 role, but paid her to band 4 salary until she did a placement. And then in August, she got promoted to a band 6 when a vacancy became available, and she applied to work in the community. So that's Romy's story. The next slide, Joy, really illustrates a different profession. So this is the speech and language therapy profession. This is Lucy. She'd qualified again in 2010, worked in a neighbouring trust, had 3 children, and after the 3rd mat leave decided to give up work. It was actually a networks with local dietitians that were saying, come on Lucy, are you not ready to come back? We could support you to come back, but she actually applied to come back to Airedale. Unfortunately, we had a post at that point, which was a band 4 mat leave that we needed to cover. Lucy stepped into that. It was a bit postponed over the lockdown, because she had to go back into school, look after her children, that school had closed. But by September 20, she'd been through a placement and applied for a band 5 vacancy, and now works as a part-time band 5, undertaking that range of places and experience on our wards and in our community. So they're two, can I have the next slide please, Joy? They're two really good examples of case studies, and I think they just illustrate different things for different people. I think collectively the learning and the reflections I've had about the programme is it's very much the right thing to do. So I would encourage organisations to embrace the opportunity. I think it's a win-win. You get to try the returnee before you buy, before they are employed in some cases, and they get to test you out. Is your organisation the right fit for each other? I think my advice would be an organisation who says we want you. It is a fast route to aid supply. Natasha talked about the 30 or 60 days. Do your background work, get set up, have your organisational processes in place and your resources, and be ready for that first inquiry. Don't just say we're not ready and another trust will pick that inquiry up. Need to educate your own staff. They need to understand the process and the opportunities with that, and just promote it to every opportunity. Talk return to practice all the time. Really important, I said, flex your opportunity to suit the returnee. Don't just offer full-time posts that have to work these hours. Think about how you could work with these people to flex both the placement and the employee at the end. We do reward teams who support it, so that financial reward that the organisation get, we ask teams what would they like, and they've bought various different things with the monies. It just doesn't go into a black hole, so they see the value, and discuss employability every time. So that's me on the last slide. There's my contact details if anyone wants them. Thank you. I think I'm going to hand over to Alex and Ellie now.
Alex and Ellie, I'm just giving you a quick warning that you do actually only have 5 minutes. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to mute myself again.
We'll do our quickest ever presentation. That's fine. Afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for letting us present here. My name's Alex. I'm a AHP practice facilitator and a physio by background. And I've got my partner in crime and colleague with me, Ellie, who I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello everyone, sorry, I hope you can hear and see me okay. My internet's playing up a little bit, but hi, my name's Ellie. I work really closely with Alex, so I'm one of the recruitment consultants at Somerset NHS and specialise in, more recently, allied health professionals. So yeah, Alex and I work really closely together in terms of the return to practice process.
Just conscious of time then, and I see that the slides, a few slides ahead. Do you want us to just go straight into our return to practice process? Would that be best?
That probably makes sense, Alex, I guess, because the other things I was just going to go over was an introduction. So yeah, if you're happy to, thank you.
I'm sure these slides will be available for you to see anyway. Okay, so part of my role is leading the return to practice programme that we have here at Somerset Foundation Trust. And we are a trust that encompasses acute mental health and community services. And we merged last year. So this is just a quick process that we do. I'll try not completely just read a list. But so at the moment, we have a rolling advert out for all AHPs, bar music or drama therapists, because we can't support them, unfortunately, within the trust, that's on NHS Jobs and Track. So Ellie and I created that in March. So we've had our process up since March and our programme's been running since then. So it's the normal application process for applicants that are interested. They either, my contact details are on the advert, so they either email me or they apply directly. And Ellie then does the shortlisting, initial shortlisting based on their previous HCPC registration and or appropriate AHP qualification or recognised qualification, so overseas, for example, and request their HCPC letter, so that confirms that there's no cautions or any sanctions against them. So from then Ellie kind of whips them over to a list that I see on Track, and as the lead I kind of review the application and I contact the applicants directly to confirm any either missing information or anything particular I need to know. So the main things I ask is confirming their registration dates and previous employment, whether it be in healthcare or elsewhere, areas of interest. So again, we're lucky enough to offer a range through community acute mental health. So there's any particular areas they want to go into initially or specifically, and then their demographics, where they are, what they're doing currently for employment, just to understand them and how we can support them and direct them to the right team or service, and any additional requirements that they have. And then from a recruitment side of things, we then duplicate their vacancies. So that allows us to kind of separate each applicant, and then whoever the recruiting manager is or the team that supports them only sees that application on Track. I hope that makes sense. We can explain it better in a minute. So if they haven't already, we ask the applicant to make sure that they're registered with the Health Education HCPC Return to Practice programme, as Natasha and Freya mentioned, and just ensure that they get as much support as they can, and they can claim their money, and obviously we need their identification number to claim also. Yeah, so from there, we were all set up, we know where they want to go, or we have an idea of their interests and their demographics, and then I kind of think across the board, okay, where's the team that's best for them initially, and I go to one team first, so I don't tend to spread out and go across multiple teams, because it makes things complicated, and it's normally, touch wood, it's normally worked that the first team I've gone to, they have been happy to support, or they've known links to a close by team, for example. Yeah, so initially, and then so talking to that team, so a bit of to and fro, explaining the process, because as both Natasha and Freya have mentioned, that understanding the return to practice process it's not commonly known, and that's really important, one, to think that supporting this returnee looking at a wider NHS workforce and recruitment opportunities locally, and understanding what they do when they supervise, what the returnee-led programme that it is, but the investment of time that we are needing to do, but also the expectation on that returnee that they're expected to do their minimum time with us as well. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense so far. Then we have created an informal interview process purely on equity, making it as fair as possible, as we've had we've had a variety of people going through honorary contracts and paid contracts. Something I didn't mention for the advert, it is advertised as an honorary contract, so an unpaid contract, so there is no expectation of payment from that point, but I've gone to teams that have had vacancies or funding available to support on a band 3 or band 4, as previously mentioned. So from then, if everything's okay, we go through an informal interview process. It's not competencies assessed, because everyone has different experience and it wouldn't be fair. It's just to get an understanding of them, their expectations of them, their commitment, their understanding as an NHS as a whole, and how we're working, and also for us to explain our commitment to them. And then
sorry to interrupt, I just need to jump in. I think you have literally just a few seconds. I'm really sorry, we have
okay.
time in this session. I'm really sorry.
That's okay. I mean, from then it's recruitment as per usual, recruitment checks. They come on a 6-month honorary contract or whatever contract we've discussed with the teams. I'm going to whistle through it. All the checks are done by the team, all mandatory training and induction stuff's done by the team that recruits them. And we've supported, yeah, and supported. I really just want to mention, if I can, in the seconds that we have, could we just go to our success stories, if that's all right, or we can go to challenges if we've got the time, but if not, we can just share these slides and I can answer any questions. Yeah, so success stories, we have actually supported 11 returners, not 10, and we've employed 2 of those, oh no, sorry, yeah, 3 of those so far, and we have in the pipeline, as Natasha briefly mentioned, with overseas recruitment, we are supporting a physio and a diagnostic radiographer. Yeah, so in the time that we've had, 7 months so far, we've been able to support 11 returnees, and given that they are now having 2 years to do that, we're quite happy with the progress that we've made, considering we've just formed this in March of this year. Oh, I'm really sorry, that was such a whistle-stop tour, but I hope that helps see how quick and easy you can actually create something. Ellie and I have learned everything kind of from scratch, and the support from Natasha and Natalie at HE has been great. So I just say that it's something it's really easy to set up and do. It does require work and investment of time, but it's so rewarding to get the returnees back on their register and recruiting either locally or nationwide. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you. Thank you.